evening. My name is Jean Martin, and I'm the ACSA Student Services Special Education Council President and Director of the North Orange County SELPA. I want to welcome everyone to our webinar. I do hope you found the title of our webinar inviting, Navigating the New Normal. This will be the overarching title of our Every Child Counts Symposium in February. This webinar is brought to you by ACSA Member Services and the Student Services Special Education Council. Tonight we will hear about two county organizations that are successfully reaching out to students with significant disabilities through distance learning. We are trying a few new things in this webinar, so please extend grace if anything goes wrong. We will fix it as quickly as we can if we have any glitches, but we do not anticipate any. Prior to this event, we launched a thought exchange asking you what is working well and what challenges are you encountering while trying to support distance learning for special education students. And we are going to share a screen to show you the results of that initial thought exchange. And first you can see this amazing screen of all the ideas and thoughts that you shared. Feel free to take a picture of that, send it out on Twitter. We have our hashtag ACSA. We also have our hashtag Every Child Counts, which was our Student Services Special Ed Council Symposium. You're welcome to use either of those, Twitter or your regional ACSA. Then in the next slide, you will see what rose to the top of our thought exchange. And these are what we took to determine what are we going to talk about in our first webinar. Our hope is we are going to have some additional webinars with the other ideas that you shared with us to help you through this time. Tonight, we invite you to join another thought exchange. It'll only take you 4 minutes. For iPhone users, you're going to hold your phone to the camera, your phone camera up to the display QR code and then join the exchange. For Android users, please go to tejoin.com and enter the code 810-980-696. And you can see that on your screen. Once you are in, click on participate and you can anonymously share your thoughts and then rate the thoughts of others. Try to rate at least 20 to 30 thoughts. That will allow the most pertinent thoughts to rise to the top, and we'll know where your thoughts are and where people are thinking. 5 would be in high agreement, 1 in low agreement. At the end of the webinar today, we are going to review the results with you. And our question is, what effective strategies are you using to positively reinforce your teachers' creativity and efforts to go above and beyond to serve special ed students while distance learning? The code to join the exchange should be on your screen. If you're Android, it's tejoin.com and the code is 810-980-696. For those who have just joined, we are doing a thought exchange. The question is on your screen. And if you have an iPhone, you can use your phone to take a picture of the QR code. Otherwise, follow the directions on the right side if you have an Android phone. Have about 2 more minutes. As you're looking at your screen, you can see some of the ideas that are being shared using Thought Exchange. All right, 1 more minute, and a reminder, you are not going to see the final results of this thought exchange until the end of our presentations this afternoon. All right, we're coming down to the last seconds. In a minute, this will be off the screen. So put your last thoughts in now. You will not see, oh, there we go, okay. So now it is my honor, for what you've been waiting for, to introduce our 2 presenters for the evening. Analee Kredel and Kim Bryant will actually introduce themselves, describe where they're from, excuse me, their name, and briefly the information they are going to share. Analee.
Thank you, Jean. So good evening, everyone. I am going to share my screen so that you can everyone can see that. So good evening. As Jean said, my name is Analee Kredel, and I'm the Chief of Special Education Services for the Orange County Department of Education. And we run a unique program in that we serve students from our partner districts. Hold on, a little bit of a difficulty. And so I want to take a moment tonight just to talk a little bit about our program, a little bit about our thought processes, and a little bit about how we came to develop our distance learning plans. And I know, none of us had a lot of time to put these things together. And from the very beginning of our journey, I have an amazing staff and an amazing administrative team that were very willing to jump on board. And so from the very beginning, my comments were that, we have 2 options. We can either freeze, or which we know would not be the right thing to do for our students or for any students. And instead, we took an attitude where we will be building this plane while we're flying it. So there wasn't, as many of you know, as we've created this, there weren't resources out there. This was an area that, while there certainly have been homeschool programs and there's certainly distance learning programs, but when you're working to teach students with the most significant disabilities, the kinds of resources that we need are more of those hands-on things. So literally, from our perspective, we were building the plane as we fly it. And we started that from the very beginning of our journey. So just want to give you a quick background. We don't have a lot of time this evening to go into great detail into our program, but so that you understand the kind of distance learning plan that we created. We serve approximately 420 students with significant disabilities from both the 27 Orange County school districts as well as the neighboring counties. We serve, as many of you do, the full ages of 3 to 22, and then we also do run some infant programs for our DHH students. We serve a wide variety and range of abilities and disabilities, including those students with significant behavioral challenges, emotional communication. We also have students that have medical fragile and some medical needs. And we serve those students both in a special day class as well as inclusive environments. And I think it's important to remember that the references that I'm going to make as I go through this evening is really designed for those students that are being served in a special day class. So I think that's important to understand. So just a little bit of background and how we jumped into our planning. So we closed our school sites on to students. So school was open, but our school sites were not open. So on March the 16th, staff reported to those sites and we began jumping into it. We began building the plane so that we could fly it. We started, teachers were encouraged to collect as many tools as they can and as much information as they can. My administrative team, including 2 outstanding coordinators and a teacher on special assignment that just did an amazing job of collecting as much information as they can so that they could disseminate that out. And, our initial plan, as with, I'm sure most of you on the phone, was for 2 weeks. We had hoped that we could create a program that would enrich the students at home and keep everyone safe, as we know. So, initially we deployed mobile devices. We looked at, spoke to families and found out what their technology needs were, whether it be hotspots. And then of course we did the paper pencil tasks and we provided them with supplies and deployed many of these things as quickly as we can in a variety of methods. And then we began the development of our distance learning plan. Again, thinking of it as the short term. However, as you all know, it rapidly, that information changed and the plan became more significant and it became more important for us to create those details that we felt that we needed. One of the real key components, I believe, in the success of our planning to this point has been our communication protocol. From the very beginning, we encouraged all of our teachers to create a log at which they use to document their conversations with families. And when I say document, it was important for us to find out how parents and families and students wanted to interact with the teachers and staff. And so it was important to utilize that and keep those kinds of notes so that we were aware. And we were also aware of, how frequently and the manners in which our families and students wanted to communicate with their teachers and staff. And then the other piece of the communication protocol was, we're in classrooms, and when we need to speak to someone, we, can very quickly step aside or walk into another room, and suddenly we were in a situation where we didn't have access to other people. So we created a communication protocol that involved the manner in which staff was encouraged to communicate, whether it be with their own staff, whether it be with their administrator, or whether it be with the leadership team, and how to go about doing that. You also probably all recall that we were all very bombarded with a lot of information. So the communication protocol became a very effective tool to make sure that everyone was getting the information. Because again, as current as we could stay with the information, that's as current as we could keep our families and our students in the loop. We also asked our school staff to summarize student data and get a real good working knowledge of where students were at the time that we did leave school. That way we could use that to consider all of the future planning for that student, as well as we can look at when students do return to school, the kinds of skills that we'll need to support them as we go forward. And then we looked at the distance learning support and we developed those pieces, and we began to disseminate that information to staff in the most rapid fashion we can. We used a Google Doc, we created materials both to support our staff, but as well as for the home enrichment activities and so on that we were providing at that point for our students and families. Then we very quickly, I mean, and it's hard, even as I developed this, it was hard for me to sort of see where one stopped and one started, because there are still planning pieces that we're working on, but we tried to move as quickly as we could into this implementation phase, where we again continued with the enhanced professional learning. We used an opportunity for us to push out modules, training modules, and so on to our staff, so that they could continue to keep their skills sharp and learn new skills over time, and skills that could support the distance learning pieces as well. We also established the learning platform. We're using Google Classroom. However, all of our staff have access to, we're using Zoom and Google and Google Meet and FaceTime and WebEx and certainly telephone and any sort of method that we can use, ensuring that our students also have access to devices and their families to support them. Then we, during the implementation phase, we talked about what those staff expectations are. We needed to create those expectations to establish what, the teaching time and the access, and talking about, those students that were more challenging to get a hold of, and families that may be more challenged. So those expectations for communication, for service delivery, and all of those pieces became a very important part. And then a big function of the implementation was also the IEP development. So we paused for a few days without IEPs, but as quickly as we could, we felt comfortable in creating IEPs to talk about student progress to date, and to talk about the kinds of goals that students would be working on when they did return to school. So that became an important piece, and we were able to create guidance and support for administrators and teachers in the development of those pieces. The next two items, and I'm going to try really hard to pull up the documents for all of you so you get a chance to see it. And we don't have a lot of time this evening for me to go into great detail, but we created two documents that became important pieces for staff in developing what each individual's emergency distance learning plan was going to look like. And the template involved, so I'm going to try to, oops. So we created what we're calling an emergency distance learning plan template, and it allows for, it's designed for the teacher and the related service providers to complete. And it starts off just a place where the teacher can record, some background information. Again, the teacher would complete this with each of her students, his or her students. And it would also give you, what's the best way to communicate with this family? What are the phone numbers? And so the teacher can have easy access to that. So then we talk a little bit about this whole concept of what this distance learning piece, and the various platforms that we may make available to our students, as well as, of course, communicating via phone. We talked about our first piece is this home learning opportunities. So we wanted to make sure that we supplied our families with information so that they could support the IEP goals and the development of those and the ongoing progress relative to those goals. So we asked that teachers created at least an hour a day of materials that they could offer to the family, and those could be sent electronically. Those could be placed in the Google Classroom. We had some flexibility because we know that our students, particularly students with the most significant disabilities, learn very differently. So we needed to ensure that we were using a variety of different platforms in order to do that. And then we talked about what would be an amount of time. So we created a standard by which we were hoping, and we know that some of our teachers, it may have been more, and in some case it may have been less based on the students' needs. But this is the time that we established a pattern of about 100 minutes a week, where 20 minutes a day, an opportunity to interact with the parent and the student, or in whatever combination that we were able to do to support that family. The other piece that we wanted to make sure that we were documenting, and we know that at least 15 minutes a week, and certainly in the beginning of the distance learning, we know this was even a greater number, that we were providing the training pieces and offering those training pieces to families as they move through the process. So, and then the next piece of this, it just talks about the related services and the amount of time. And so this, we were asking our teachers and to collaborate with all the various related services that are identified in an individual's IEP, so that we could determine what was realistic and what could be done during this time. So we talk about, you know, the modes of the instruction, whether it be the speech and language therapist or whatever related service might be included in an IEP. This wasn't a time to add services to an IEP, but rather look at what's currently in the IEP and looking at how we could deliver it. So it talks about schedules, it talks about accommodations and the supplementary supports that we want to make sure that we've either made available to families or we may need to make available to families. And then we talks a little bit about the communication piece, and again, the big piece that we wanted to make sure that we made clear to our teachers as we rolled this out and had those conversations was that while this is an initial approach to distance learning and it's your plan that you're creating for an individual student, we want to make sure that about every couple weeks we circle back around to the plan and make sure that it may need to be you know, revised, looked at again. And so we did, by dating it, it allowed us an opportunity to do that. So another piece that's also associated with this work is this idea of, we asked each of our teachers to also create I keep calling it a crosswalk, but it's an opportunity to look at those activities that would support annual goals. So pulling out some of the IEP speak and the language that we use that sometimes isn't necessary for the families to be able to implement at home, and looking at, you know, what a particular student, what their IEP goal, for example, in reading, and then some activities that they can do. And then additionally, those are the things that the teachers will be sending home on a regular basis or emailing or putting in their Google Classroom, so that to support that learning at home. And again, this is a template. I assure you that I've seen it a much more attractive document, but this was just the guidelines. So you can see it gives enough room for those pieces. Back to my. So those were part of the implementation. And again, those are the pieces that I feel support the ongoing distance learning pieces. So again, we didn't have a lot of time tonight to talk into any great detail, but I think where we all are at now is looking at those next steps. You know, we are, you know, reaching out to families, we're working with students, we're creating those distance learning plans for each individual student, and we're looking back and reviewing them and making sure that we've put all the appropriate things in place. And so our next steps really are to start talking about the return to school and what that's going to look like. And start our planning with those processes. And so that's our next big thing, and certainly moving from this emergency planning to strategic planning. Because I hope as we reflect back on this time, I know that I have reflected back that there are a number of things that have happened. You know, I frequently talk about the good that comes out of the challenges, and some of the very good that's come out of this challenge has been that, you know, we've improved our technology. We've looked at alternative ways to provide information to students, and particularly students with significant challenges. So there has been a great deal of learning there, and the reflection pieces will be able to be articulated in our strategic plan as we go forward and look at new and different and enhanced ways to provide the same level of instructions to our students. So it's been a pleasure sharing this with you. Again, you know, a very quick overview of the kind of work we've been doing, but I know we'll have some time for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Analee. That was amazing. I do want to assure everyone that Analee's resources, as well as her PowerPoint presentation, will be shared. At the end of our presentation, everything will go up in the ACSA Resource Hub. So no worry, you'll all have access. Another thing I did forget to mention prior to Analee's presentation was we are not going to be taking questions in the chat. However, do not panic. We are going to do another thought exchange where everyone can put their questions in that thought exchange, and then we will address those questions for about 20 minutes. So hold on to your questions. I promise that we will address them after Kim's presentation, and Analee's not going anywhere, and Kim will stay as well. So now I would like to introduce Kim Bryant. She will share where she is from and what she'll be presenting on. And with no further ado, Kim, the baton is yours.
Hi, I'm Kim Bryant, and I'm from Reading School District, from Region 1 up way north. And I have a couple of helpers here with me who really truly are in the trenches and are working with the students with disabilities. I'm the director of special ed for my district. I have one of my special day class teachers here to join me. I got to visit in one of her Google Meets, and it was a social talent show today that I took a picture of and included in my presentation. And I asked her to come join me today to talk specifically about her journey through this distance learning. And then I also asked Melissa Medeiros, who is a great partnership. She works with the severely handicapped, who addresses our severely handicapped population within our region up north, and addresses those needs in our districts, and kind of what her teachers are doing, wonderful hands-on for the medically fragile, and how they're addressing their distance learning at this time. So let me try this, share screen here. Let me, hold on a minute. Uh-oh, where did my presentation go? Oh. Is that working? I can't tell.
No stress, Kim. Take your time. It's okay. No stress. Josh is here. He'll help you out. Don't worry.
All right, I've got it. I've got it up, but I don't know if you guys can see it.
Not quite yet. At the bottom of your screen, you should see the green icon that says share screen with the arrow pointing up.
I know, and it's not, I've got it on my screen, but it's not sharing. I don't do Zoom, I do the Google Meet, so.
Oh, no, you're doing great. Go ahead and there should be a Zoom icon on your computer. It's a little camera, blue with a white camera on it. Go ahead and click on that.
There we go. Okay.
Now at the bottom of your screen, you should see a green icon with the arrow pointing up.
I did share, but I don't know if it's not, let me see. Ah, I had it up earlier. Ah. Okay, great. How do I get back into my Zoom now? I'm gonna ask my girls here if they can help me.
Give me a moment. I think I might have it as well.
I do have it on my desktop. I can click through it if that will help.
All right, and then.
Go ahead. I have it up for you.
No.
Thank you,
Okay.
Josh.
Thank you, Joss and Margie, and thank everyone for their patience. As you all know, Zoom is one of our new joys, and I appreciate all the suggestions in the chat as well. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, everybody. Okay, now I lost the meeting. Oh my goodness. No, it's not.
Oh.
Kim, we can hear you. If you can see your PowerPoint, I think Margie's got, she can
All right.
coordinate with you and we can go through it.
All right, I think I can do this. All right, so up in Region 1, we have 28 separate school districts, of course, ranging from, you know, all the way, our little toddlers, all the way up to through the preschool. The districts are the LEAs, and most of our districts run our special day classes, mild to moderate programs. For example, in Reading School District, and the teacher that I have sitting here, socially distancing, I must comment, most definitely. We have mild to moderate, but our special day classes have no more than 15, and most of them are to the mild or to the moderate end. Our mild students are really accepted within our general population, and we are really pushing for full inclusion, or working toward that, I guess I should say. So most of our learning handicap students are all within the general ed classroom. So our special day class teachers are very talented at working with the autism, the ID. Some of them are even nonverbal. The great partnership, which a few of our districts are on the board and oversee it, but the director is here, Melissa Medeiros, and they serve this severely handicapped population for the region. There's a total of 170 students, preschool through 8th grade, but we as districts, of course, are the LEA that oversee placement and offer FAPE, you know, free. So the students are the pre-8th grade with a very wide range of abilities. Most of them are nonverbal, some have extensive behavioral needs, and there's one medically fragile class. Most of those students have been homeschooled all their life, and we created this medically fragile class, which has been with an amazing teacher. These kids are socializing in their own way. Most of them are in wheelchairs, non-ambulatory, and doing art projects, and that has gone on for 2 years now, and just quite amazing, and the parents are just thrilled with that program. Again, as I said, most of our special day classes, we have 8 in Reading School District, and we are serving toward the moderate end of the spectrum. It was quite challenging. We first, when we had the distance learning, well, we first went into enrichment when the shutdown began. And then as of April 14th, when we came back from spring break, we went into distance learning. As a director, my teachers were coming to me, what does this look like? And I think as we all said, you know, Sheridan and Analee said, it was an uphill learning curve. It was new to us all. So what does this look like? Each one of my teachers has taken this on 110%. They are doing an amazing job, and I will let one of my teachers share her story. At this time, I'm going to showcase Patricia Stevens. She really was very concerned about how does she address the goals? The goals, the goals, the goals. And I just said, you know, communication first. These parents are drowning themselves. Let's start with communication. I sent out special ed logs. What do those look like? Very similar to what Analee shared. And let's just start communicating with the parents. Some of the teachers are learning Google Classroom, Google Meet, Class Dojo, and it's an uphill learning curve for them also. Patricia just started to try and share out the kids were really missing each other. She creates a family within her classroom. And one of the girls is nonverbal, and a couple of the other girls, there's a Down syndrome student in there, and they just really just missed each other. So she thought, how can I make like social meetings? She created a pet day, social day, and then a social learning talent day was today. And then next week, I think, is the scavenger hunt, or maybe she had that one. I'm gonna go ahead And here's an example today. I took a little picture. I got to be involved in it. It was the talent show. One student made guacamole and shared with us. Another student was singing, and as she was singing, the whole class stood up and started dancing on there. It brought me to tears. But I also wanted to, since I oversee all of special ed, the speech therapist was on board. So she was checking for her own goals there. She was trying to engage the students that she works with. The school psychologist was there. She has a few students that she has some IEP goals with, but also she goes into that classroom and she talked about, Dominic, that's really great how you asked that other person what she is sitting on, and just talking about, so really reaching our goals through this social Google Meet, and we can address items and students and a whole class and inviting everybody. The principal came in and out also. So I'm going to invite Patricia Stevens and my special day class. Let me move on.
Hello, my name is Patricia Stevens. I am the SDC teacher, and I teach 5th through 8th grade and mild to moderate. Most of them are moderate. So when this hit, I'm at school one day and the next day it's like, we're out. So there was no planning. I do have aides when I'm at school, and they were my technology wizards. So to say the least, I was not equipped with technology. And taking that into, so I take that every day when I present anything. I've learned a lot on my own, and the district offers virtual learning also. So I know the parents had quite an uphill too, because they have to put the student on. So I make sure, I think, how can I learn? So the first thing, I make step-by-step instructions, how to do, how to get on. And I did all this through the enrichment program because I knew the distant learning was going to eventually come down the road, which it did. And so during that time, the district, we send out packets, and my packets meet each student individually meets their needs. Some of the material reaches their goals, but I'm a dot the I's, cross the T's. So I have to make sure that I give enough time to students to meet their goals. And I didn't know exactly, I first tried out, one day I tried out small groups, and that's kind of how I do it in class. We do small groups, and then I pull them and teach, and then I assess why I don't have aides. So I tried the small group, but the kids were so distracted from each other, and I went, okay, this is not really working. So that's when I came up with, okay, I'm going to do a social time, and it just gives them time to meet. And so then I do that 2 times a week, a half an hour. So the first one was kind of a flop. I had kids, but they're just sitting there, and I'm facilitating, asking questions. So that's when I came up and said it needs to be more interactive for these students. So the first day I had the pet day, and they brought their pets, and then afterwards they were talking to one another. And then each day I have a theme, each time I have a theme, scavenger hunt, talent show. So the parents are really involved in that also. And then I meet with the individual student 45 minutes to an hour each during the week to cover their IEP goals. And then the parents are allowed to, if they need extra time, I schedule them extra time. And then I also have an office hour. So, and I'm all, so I try to meet the needs of all the parents. I'm constantly in contact with them, how I could help them. And then I decided to add another piece to it. So I learned how to do Google Classroom, and I signed up all my students, sent out emails, informed the parents. And in that Google Meets, because parents were saying they were overwhelmed with all the different websites out there and different things. So I choose things and put it in my Google Classroom. So they just have to click on this, on the link, and it goes right to it. So I have already put out our librarian. She was out there reading 3 stories. She sent it over to my email, and I put it in my Google Classroom so the students could have that familiar face, because we do library time at school. So, and then I look for different science. You know, I might put out a fun thing that they could do at home for science. So I'm trying to make it fun, interactive, and less stressful for the parents. I'm always talking to parents. What can I do to meet the needs, but not stress you guys out? So that's where I'm at. So I'm going to turn this over to Great Partnership Director, Melissa Menderes, and I'm going to move out of the way so she can come here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Medeiros, and I am the Director of Great Partnership. And as Kim stated, we serve all of the students kind of in our region that have severely handicapping conditions. You know, first and foremost, we really wanted to make sure that our families were feeling connected. This has been a very unnerving time, and I know for our families, they very much look forward to their students having that time of structured activities. And so the thought of being home without having a lot of structure was quite unnerving for a lot of our parents. So initially what we did was all of our teachers reached out to every single one of the families, and we completed a needs assessment. We really wanted to connect with the families, let them know that we were there, find out what it was that we could provide for them, and just let them feel supported. And if there was any service that we could connect them with, we did. And then really we moved into a phase of encouraging, and what, you know, I didn't come up with a roadmap. Basically, that whole building the plane while we're flying it, I kind of got stuck a little bit. But what really came out of it was my instruction to my amazing teachers that I work with was look at the goals, figure out how we can meet the goals and still support our students. And so really this has been a wonderful opportunity that has just unleashed bounds of creativity within our teachers. So one of our classrooms, well, across the board, they've written up schedules, suggested schedules. They typically have done daily videos of them doing circle time, and they also provide the materials home so that the student has the materials, whether the parent needs to go hand over hand with them, but just to give them a sense of comfort and you know, some sense of sameness of the routine that they would have had in the classroom. They're coming up with weekly themes with links to related stories and songs. They're utilizing the paraprofessionals, and they're reading stories, they're including their pets, they're including their grandkids, they're singing songs. So it's been extremely creative, you know, really trying to build on that teacher's creativity and making sure that all of our students feel connected. We have provided materials, like I said, and I'm not sure whether you can see on camera or not. I brought a basket that had all of the materials. There was a book, there is a morning calendar binder, puzzle, and then this was a book of that the teacher put together that has their goals, and then it has worksheets that she has videotaped herself going through the lesson so that the parent could show that to the child. She also provided, this is her calendar time, and she has videotaped herself again going through this and provided all the cards to the families. Additionally, this particular week was about growing. So she provided a plant, also provided some materials for the family, you know, some writing utensils, scissors. They also do a cooking activity every Friday. So this was provided to all of the families along with a video demonstrating how to do it. We also have an occupational therapist that works with us, and she has posted in all of our Google Classrooms or Classroom Dojo for ideas to help meet sensory needs, gross and fine motor skill needs. Our speech therapists are also in weekly contact with all of the families, providing core words and stories. We also have our adaptive PE teacher that has provided ideas for in-home activities. And then if the family wishes, she's doing a PE activity with the teacher over Google Classroom. We provide office hours so that the families can Zoom in with the student and the parents. And again, we are providing different materials each week. Again, we just are really wanting to make sure that our families and our students feel supported. Our teachers desperately miss their students and are hoping for a safe and healthy resolution to this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know it was tricky with the internet. Kim, did you have more to share or?
No, I don't. I just want to, I know we've gone over time a little bit. We get pretty passionate and excited about, you know, it really has turned into a positive event for a lot of our families and a lot of our kids. A lot of relationships are building and some fun activities have come up. And I think from here on, we'll be able to share some of those passions and activities and excitement from here on. So
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Yes. So we had some amazing information shared. I can see a couple questions still popping up in the chat. I do want to share again that the information, the slide presentation, the webinar will be shared, the PowerPoints will be shared, and also any additional links or any additional items that were shared out. Kim, if I can say maybe pictures of those amazing books that that was in that basket. That was pretty impressive. So maybe some pictures of that will help some of our participants.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you again. So just in awe with the amazing things that both Analee and Kim are doing for our students with more significant needs. It's difficult and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you. So now we have another thought exchange. This thought exchange will give you the opportunity to ask our panelists some questions. And then what will happen is you'll rate what you see in the questions, just like you've done in the last two thought exchanges, the one we did prior and the one that we did at the very beginning of our presentation. And as you can see, it is a new QR code. So if you have a iPhone, you want to take a picture of that QR code. If you have Android, you're going to go to tejoin.com and use the code that you see on the screen, 884-583-501. That's where you want to put your questions. The questions will rise to the top as you rate them. So we have about 5 minutes to get the questions in. We will probably go over a little over 5 o'clock, just so we can get the questions answered that you have. You can go ahead and get started. All right, your ideas and thoughts are being compiled right now. We'll share them out in about a minute. This is that awkward silence. Everyone else is thinking, Analee. Don't worry. They're exchanging. All right, about 30 seconds. The nice thing with thought exchange is everyone's voices are heard, and those most common questions that are rated will rise to the top so we can address those to make sure we answer the questions that the majority of the individuals have. Certainly we think everyone's questions are important, but our time is limited. Okay, so it is closed, and Alan is going to give me the questions any second now. Okay. The first question I have here is, how are you distributing hands-on materials? Kim, do you want to answer that first? And then Analee, if you have additional information?
Sure, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to my distancing partner.
So typically what we are doing is we're offering the opportunity for parents to come to the school site, the campus, in like 15-minute increments, and they're setting the materials out, making sure that they're social distancing, but speaking to the parent if they have any questions. For some of our families, it was a challenge to get out, and so we have had teachers deliver to the house while they're on a Google Meet and dropping off at the front porch. So definitely unique and different ways of delivering the material.
Thank you. Analee, how are you handling that?
Well, and I would echo those same comments. Yeah, we've been very creative. We've dropped things off on doorsteps. We've had families, like you said, come by and drive by, but we've done a lot of US mail as well. So I know initially when we went out, that was one of the things that we did, was we made sure that we created packets of information to be sent home to families. Mm-hmm. Those families that are able to print things, obviously we send things with attachments and emails, but you know, like she just said, we in whatever method we can, we've distributed those tools to students.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next question. As we consider moving into more permanent distance learning in the fall, what are some ideas or plans you have for providing comparable or comparable services? That's a tough one. Analee, I'm going to let you address this one first if you've thought about that.
Right. It's an excellent question, and you saw in the last slides where our next steps. So these are the conversations that we're starting to have. What is it going to look like when we return to school? What is that, you know, perhaps the word used here, a hybrid program, where we may have some students that perhaps are not in, for health reasons or for other reasons, are not good candidates to be on a school campus. And given, you know, all of the kinds of
things that we're going to put in place, or we're planning to put in place for students' return. So I think that, as I mentioned earlier about the good that comes out of some of our challenges, is that we now are learning how to provide instruction in different ways. And so we may find ourselves utilizing those skills as we transition back into both in school. You know, over the years, we've had those students that I just was speaking to someone today with attendance issues and things like that, where we're not sure how we could serve them. And it just didn't fit into a more traditional model that we've created for our students. But I think the skills that we've acquired through this distance learning opportunity will be things that we can use going forward.
Absolutely. Kim, do you have any additional thoughts?
I absolutely agree with that. I like the idea of like a hybrid, and we've talked about it and used that word exactly. I just want to add in there also, we really like the DocuSign for IEPs. So we want to continue that, because boy, it goes fast and then there's an end. And we thought, you know, my office manager will be the end, and we'll just upload all the IEPs all at once. So kind of adding that. But yes, definitely, I think we're learning new ways of teaching our kids.
And if I could add, we've needed the DocuSign for before we had distance learning. So I think this is wonderful. I think it's wonderful.
Another positive. What is your participation rate, Kim?
Participation rate, you mean in terms of the distance learning? We have been, and I'm just thinking in terms of speech, and so, you know, dividing it up. It has been pretty good. We have, and I don't want to put a number on it. I would say it's definitely over 50%, because I think we're really trying to focus on groups. For example, Patricia's group, and including speech and including psychs, and addressing our IEP goals that way. Is it exactly the service minutes? No. But trying to reach our families. Most of our schools were only missing, maybe MIA missing like one family, maybe two. We're really reaching out there. We have a great county process right now if we can't find families. But so far, I've only sent out a few of those PWNs for refusal of services. So.
Okay. Analee, have you monitored that as well?
Yeah, no, that is not, I mean, I'm not as close to that number, what our actual participation rate is, but we do talk, I know in our leadership meetings that translate to the sites, we talk about, you know, those families or those students that either we haven't heard from, or we're not hearing from them in the frequency at which we would want. In order for the program to be effective. And so I know those are the students that we're talking about, creative ways to get to those families, what kinds of supports. You know, I think one thing that's really important for everybody to think that, you know, when we started off, it was, you know, a couple of weeks, and then it went to a month. And while maybe initially there were some families that weren't as responsive, or students that weren't as responsive, but the longer this has gone, I think that it has created opportunities for us to approach it differently. And, you know, as we treat all students with those individualized needs, I think that this has been that same thing, and the participation just looks different for different students. But it's an excellent question and something to consider. But again, we're just working one student at a time.
Thank you. Thank you. Seems like a lot of parent involvement. Whoops, I lost that. There we are. How do you support families with multiple children, or parents who are working from home or are essential employees? And those are all really great questions for all of our students. Analee, I'm going to let you have that one first.
Well, as I spoke of our individual plan, and part of that emergency distance learning plan for each student would be a place that the teacher could make those remarks so that they remember that, as you know, we do know that, you know, some students, you know, have many siblings or parents, like you said, that are essential. And that are struggling trying to even work at home, whether they be outside of the home or in the home. Those are real struggles for our families. So the Google Classroom has been a nice addition in the sense that you can place things there. So if they're not able to attend at a time that is convenient for the teacher or the group that's meeting, but they can go and access those things at a different time. So I think that's been one way that I know that our teachers have done a really good job of creating things that families could go back to when they do have the availability, or, at varying times that aren't necessarily during the school day, those school time hours.
Sure. Kim, do you have more to add for that?
Yeah, Melissa was just added in, we did a pretty thorough needs assessment at the beginning of our distance learning. And I think that really defined, what families were out there. A lot of the working families that had 4 Chromebooks going at the same time, what were they to do? Or the twin first graders at home alone with the 6th grader, I didn't want, so how, and I think building those relationships at the beginning, especially after the needs assessment and getting to know your families, when will it be the best time to provide the education, or like you said, sending things in or putting things in Google Classroom and accepting it at 5 o'clock on Friday, or, and just making our schedule best fit them. We start our day at 10 now then, so,
Sure.
Not us, but
Right.
so whatever best fits our families now. And again, that needs assessment really, I think, helped us define our families. And Melissa commented on that also for hers.
And it's never too late to do a needs assessment. So if you don't mind sharing, if you have that as a document, if you don't mind sharing that, I think it would be appreciated as well. All right, I think we have time for one more question, and then we want to look at our initial question that we posed out there. How do you get students to participate with severe behaviors? That question has come up many times. Kim, this one's yours first.
I'm going to hand it off to the expert, our teacher over here.
Well, that's where I had to really think, and that's where I make it a theme and I make it fun, something like pets. Most students have pets, so they bring it. Some are nonverbal, so they use their iPads and they have the pictures of the kids on there. So that went home with them so they could say hi, whoever's showing the pet, I like it. They're just willing, and the parents are sitting next to them. It's been wonderful. I mean, I think they're communicating more now on this distance learning because they're excited to see each other and they have something fun. We did a scavenger hunt. Parents helped. Some sisters, brothers are out there that are helping these kids and showing the items and different things and talent shows and modeling and being part of it. The dad, he was in the talent show with one of his daughters. So I think we're all working together and it seems to be working, and I'm just flexible. Like one student practiced something and then she couldn't do it. So, because she was so distracted about all of us on the screen. So that I just took the opportunity and told each kid unmute and to say hi to that student, and that was her day in the talent show. So it's just flexibility and making it work for every single child.
Thank you. Thank you. Analee, do you have anything to add?
Well, one of the pieces that we've had, again, I'm always looking at the good that comes out of our challenges, and we have a team of transition behavior specialists that they've been doing some outreach to families just directly to, again, opportunities we haven't really had before to do the training pieces and to support families, talk about some of the challenges they're having, and then talking about this the participation piece. I think another part that has been nice too is that we've been, an opportunity to see the student behaviors at home. In some cases those might not be behaviors that we see at school. So it's a good opportunity to see those things and to address them with the families. So I think it's just, those are the great challenges. We know we have some students that have very severe behaviors in school, but this is an opportunity to do some of the training pieces that we haven't had an opportunity to do, as well as we are encouraging our teachers to make sure that they give that one-on-one time. Some of these students also are assigned in school to have that additional support person, like a one-on-one. And you know, our staff develop relationships with students, so we're trying really hard to incorporate those individuals into the teaching opportunities or other types of opportunities to interact with students when they're at home with their families. So we're hoping that helps with reducing the challenging behaviors that the families are seeing at home.
I just wanted to add it. Some of these kids are really missing their paras and their IAs within the classroom. So we're trying to make like office hours with the paras and IAs. And it seems like those behaviorally challenged kids really miss that relationship with the paras. So creating like office hours with their IAs have really been neat too. I've seen in my classes.
And we've done similar things.
Well, Anna,
County
go
Department.
ahead. Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah, so Analee and Kim, I want to thank you so much for sharing your wealth of information. There are also some individuals sharing in the chat on some things they're doing as well, and I thank everyone for doing that. We do have the results of our thought exchange that we engaged in at the very beginning of our presentation in a second. Oh, these are effective strategies that we're using to positively reinforce our teachers, because we know our teachers are in the front lines right now. Sending personal emails to acknowledge and say thank you, training opportunities with collaborative Google Meets and distance learning, shout outs, supporting students with access to sites, and making sure the curriculum is at the student's level. Integrating with Google Classroom IEP goals and data, mailing out cards. That other one was boom cards. Meeting every 2 weeks just to talk, personal notes, again, shout outs during online staff meetings, sharing YouTube videos that they've made, communicating with families and remaining available and present to them. And the last one I'm going to read out is individual phone calls, check-ins with teachers, praising the important and innovative ways they are supporting students. We will share that all out again after our presentation, but some great ideas. And we do need to remember the hard work our teachers are doing to make this successful. I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here with us and allowing us to have a few hiccups with our first webinar. We very much enjoyed the thought exchange and utilizing that for our questions and to get some ideas on where you're at as well. The webinar evaluations will go out later this evening, so please fill them out, and that will help us do better the next time that we get together. All of the materials, all of the thought exchange results, as well as the recorded webinar, will be posted on ACSA's Resource Hub. The link for that hub was shared in our chat several times. I'm going to ask somebody on our panel to share it one last time so that we all have that link. And thank you those who are saying hi from places I've worked in the past. It's nice to hear everyone. So again, thank you for joining us, and I do hope this information was helpful for everyone.